Sierra Leone's Auditor-General, a critical analysis and comparative perspective. Welcome to the Bold African Voice, BAV, the platform where we amplify Africa's stories, celebrate its resilience, and hold power accountable. I'm Abdul Karim Kargbo. Today, we unravel the controversy surrounding Sierra Leone's Auditor-General, a case that goes beyond borders to reveal the challenges and opportunities in governance across Africa. Stay with us for insights, analysis, and solutions. In a controversial move that has sparked widespread debate both domestically and internationally, Sierra Leone's parliament voted on December 20, 2024, to remove Auditor General Lara Taylor-Pearce and her deputy, Tamba Momo, following allegations of professional misconduct. This decision, pushed forward by a tribunal established by President Julius Maada Bio in November 2021, has profound implications for the independence of Sierra Leone's oversight institutions, governance integrity, and the nation's democratic ethos. Context of the removal. The process began in November 2021 when President Bio suspended Taylor-Pearce and Momo, citing allegations of professional misconduct. A tribunal was established to investigate the claims, with its findings submitted to President Bio in June 2024. The tribunal recommended their removal, a decision accepted by President Bio in July 2024, who subsequently directed the Attorney General to initiate proceedings. By August 2024, the tribunal's report had been submitted to Parliament for deliberation. During the December 2024 parliamentary session, which saw a two-thirds majority, 100 out of 136 members present, vote in favor of the removal, tensions ran high. Opposition parties, particularly the All People's Congress, APC, raised significant objections to the process, describing it as rushed and politically motivated. The leader of the opposition, Abdul Kargbo, argued that insufficient time was provided for members to review the matter, accusing the government of orchestrating a vote in the absence of key opposition MPs. Debate over independence and accountability. The Intosai Development Initiative, IDI, and the Intosai General Secretariat expressed deep concerns over the removal's impact on the independence of Sierra Leone's Supreme Audit Institution. These organizations highlighted that the credibility of a nation's governance framework depends heavily on the autonomy of its auditing bodies, which act as watchdogs over public resources. Similarly, local and international critics, including opposition leaders, noted that Taylor-Pearce's track record of exposing financial mismanagement positioned her as a target for political interference. The opposition further emphasized that the tribunal's findings lacked evidence of substantial professional misconduct, with independent reviews failing to corroborate claims against her. Parliamentary irregularities. The parliamentary session itself raised questions about procedural fairness. The decision to calculate the two-thirds majority based on members present, rather than the total membership of Parliament, was criticized as unprecedented by opposition leaders. Honorable Kargbo argued that this approach undermined parliamentary norms and set a dangerous precedent for future decisions. The ruling speaker dismissed these concerns, asserting that the decision was consistent with parliamentary procedures. However, this interpretation remains contentious and is likely to fuel further debate on the limits of executive influence over legislative processes. Regional comparisons. The removal of Sierra Leone's Auditor General fits within a troubling trend across Africa, where leaders have been accused of undermining democratic institutions to consolidate power. In Tanzania, former President John Magufuli faced criticism for sidelining independent institutions, including the National Audit Office. In Nigeria, similar controversies have surrounded the dismissal of top anti-corruption officials, raising concerns about political interference in oversight institutions. By comparison, Ghana's Supreme Audit Institution has maintained relative autonomy, bolstered by a robust constitutional framework and a culture of bipartisan respect for oversight mechanisms. This highlights the importance of institutional independence as a cornerstone of democratic governance. Forward-looking implications. The removal of Taylor-Pearce and Momo presents significant challenges for Sierra Leone's governance landscape. It risks eroding public trust in oversight institutions and the broader democratic framework. As journalist Thomas Dixon aptly noted, Her only crime was to stand up for the public in protecting the purse and for exposing malfeasance in the highest office of the land. Moving forward, Sierra Leone faces critical questions. How can the independence of oversight institutions be safeguarded? What steps should be taken to ensure that political interference does not undermine the principles of transparency and accountability? And what role should civil society and international organizations play in advocating for reforms? This development also raises broader questions about the effectiveness of oversight institutions across Africa. While many nations have constitutional provisions guaranteeing the autonomy of auditors general and similar bodies, enforcement often falls short, leaving room for political manipulation. Global perspectives. International organizations, including the United Nations and the African Union, have emphasized the importance of strong, independent institutions in fostering good governance and sustainable development. Sierra Leone's decision to remove its Auditor General, against a backdrop of contentious procedural issues, raises concerns about the nation's commitment to these principles. This unfolding story underscores the need for vigilance from Sierra Leone's civil society, international partners, and media in holding the government accountable. The broader African context highlights a crucial lesson. Democratic resilience requires more than just strong constitutions. It demands unwavering commitment to the rule of law and institutional independence. Pathways to institutional reform. To address the systemic vulnerabilities exposed by the removal of Sierra Leone's Auditor General, a comprehensive approach to institutional reform is essential. This includes strengthening the legal framework governing oversight bodies, enhancing transparency in governance processes, and fostering a culture of accountability at all levels of government. 1. Strengthening legal protections for oversight bodies. One of the primary weaknesses highlighted in the Taylor-Pearce case is the ease with which executive interference can undermine the independence of key institutions. Sierra Leone could draw lessons from South Africa's Chapter 9 institutions, such as the Office of the Public Protector, which are constitutionally mandated to operate independently and are insulated from direct political control. To replicate such safeguards, Sierra Leone's parliament could consider amendments to the Audit Service Act, specifying conditions under which the Auditor General can be suspended or removed. These provisions should include independent judicial oversight to ensure that any action against oversight officials is not politically motivated. 2. Promoting transparency in governance. The controversy surrounding Taylor-Pearce's removal has highlighted the opacity of decision-making processes within Sierra Leone's governance framework. Greater transparency is required in the appointment, suspension, and investigation of public officials. Mechanisms such as public hearings, open parliamentary debates, and real-time publication of tribunal findings can help restore public confidence. A case in point is Kenya, where public vetting processes for top government officials have increased accountability and reduced the perception of political interference. Implementing similar measures in Sierra Leone could enhance the credibility of its institutions. 3. Building civil society and media capacity. An active and empowered civil society is a critical counterbalance to government overreach. Organizations like the Campaign for Good Governance, CGG, and the Sierra Leone Association of Journalists, SLAJ, have played significant roles in amplifying public concerns about governance issues. However, they face challenges such as limited funding, restrictive legal environments, and harassment. Providing technical and financial support to these groups can strengthen their capacity to advocate for reforms and hold the government accountable. Similarly, supporting investigative journalism could uncover misconduct and inform public debates on governance. 4. Engaging international actors. The role of international organizations and donors in promoting good governance in Sierra Leone cannot be overlooked. The concerns raised by INTOSAI and other global bodies about the implications of Taylor-Pearce's removal underscore the need for sustained international engagement. Donors and development partners could link financial assistance to tangible governance reforms, ensuring that aid directly supports efforts to strengthen institutional independence and accountability. Additionally, frameworks such as the African Peer Review Mechanism, APRM, could be leveraged to provide a regional platform for addressing these challenges. Lessons from comparable cases. Tanzania's judiciary and oversight bodies. Under former President Magufuli, Tanzania experienced significant erosion of institutional independence, including the sidelining of its controller and auditor-general. However, the transition to President Samia Suluhu Hassan has seen efforts to restore these institutions' credibility, demonstrating the potential for leadership transitions to drive positive change. Nigeria's battle against political interference. Nigeria's history of removing anti-corruption officials, such as the suspension of Ibrahim Magu as acting chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, highlights the tension between executive authority and institutional autonomy. Reforms in Nigeria have emphasized judicial oversight and enhanced legislative scrutiny, offering a potential blueprint for Sierra Leone. Botswana's integrity framework. Botswana's consistent ranking as one of Africa's least corrupt nations is attributed to its robust integrity frameworks, which include clear mandates for oversight institutions and strong enforcement of accountability measures. Sierra Leone could explore Botswana's approach to institutional governance, particularly its emphasis on transparency and merit-based appointments. Potential impact on Sierra Leone's democratic trajectory. The fallout from Taylor-Pearce's removal may have far-reaching implications for Sierra Leone's political landscape. Critics argue that the decision reflects a broader trend of centralizing power within the executive branch, raising concerns about the erosion of democratic checks and balances. The controversy also risks alienating key stakeholders, including opposition parties, civil society, and international partners. As Sierra Leone prepares for future elections, the independence of its institutions will be a critical factor in ensuring free and fair electoral processes. The perception of compromised accountability mechanisms could undermine voter confidence and exacerbate political tensions. Public response and civil society mobilization. The public reaction to the removal of Auditor-General Lara Taylor-Pearce has been both vocal and divided. While supporters of President BU argue that the decision was a necessary step to address alleged professional misconduct, critics view it as a politically motivated attack on one of the country's most respected accountability figures. This divide has galvanized civil society organizations, opposition parties, and international observers, all of whom are questioning the implications for Sierra Leone's democratic framework. Grassroots advocacy and citizen mobilization. Grassroots organizations have emerged as key players in shaping the national dialogue on governance and institutional independence. Pro-democracy groups such as the National Election Watch, NEW, and advocacy networks like the Campaign for Good Governance, CGG, have called for an independent review of the tribunal's findings and greater transparency in the process. Public demonstrations, though limited in scale, have highlighted growing frustration among citizens who view Taylor-Pearce's removal as part of a broader pattern of executive overreach. Social media has also played a pivotal role in amplifying dissenting voices. Hashtags like #Defend Accountability and #Justice for Taylor-Pearce have trended locally, reflecting widespread concerns about the impact of this decision on the independence of oversight institutions. These platforms have become spaces for citizens to share their grievances, demand accountability, and pressure international organizations to intervene. Civil society's role in shaping public opinion. Civil society organizations, CSOs, have leveraged their platforms to educate citizens on the importance of institutional independence. Through town hall meetings, radio discussions, and social media campaigns, CSOs have emphasized the broader implications of the Auditor General's removal. They argue that undermining accountability institutions weakens governance and fosters an environment conducive to corruption and mismanagement. International reaction and the role of development partners. The international community has closely monitored developments surrounding Taylor-Pearce's removal, with organizations like the World Bank, the African Union, AU, and the European Union, EU, issuing cautious statements. These bodies have underscored the importance of independent oversight institutions for maintaining fiscal discipline and public trust. Concerns from INTOSAI and global oversight advocates. The Intosai Development Initiative, IDI, and the Intosai General Secretariat have been particularly vocal, raising alarm over the potential erosion of Sierra Leone's supreme audit institution. In a joint statement, these organizations called for adherence to global standards of accountability and emphasized the need for robust safeguards against political interference. Intosai's critique carries significant weight, given its role as the leading global organization for public sector auditing. Its concerns have prompted calls for Sierra Leone to review its adherence to the Lima Declaration, which outlines principles for ensuring the independence of audit institutions worldwide. Potential conditionalities on development aid, donor agencies and development partners, including the UK's Department for International Development, DFID, and the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, have hinted at potential conditionalities on future aid. These agencies are reportedly evaluating the impact of recent developments on Sierra Leone's governance and public financial management systems. Should concerns about institutional independence persist, Sierra Leone risks losing critical financial support for its development programs. Broader implications for governance in Sierra Leone. The removal of Taylor-Pearce has reignited debates about the concentration of power within Sierra Leone's executive branch. Critics argue that the incident reflects a broader trend of diminishing checks and balances, raising questions about the long-term stability of the country's democratic institutions. This governance crisis coincides with Sierra Leone's broader socio-economic challenges, including high inflation, youth unemployment, and declining public confidence in government institutions. The erosion of independent oversight mechanisms could exacerbate these issues by reducing transparency in public resource management and weakening anti-corruption efforts. Looking ahead, the role of public pressure and reform. As public debate continues, there is growing pressure on the government to address concerns about the independence of oversight institutions. The opposition has proposed a series of reforms, including establishing an independent commission to oversee appointments and disciplinary actions for key public officials. However, the feasibility of such reforms depends on political will and the ability of civil society to sustain momentum for change. Restoring public trust in democratic institutions. The path to rebuilding public confidence in Sierra Leone's governance structures hinges on a multi-pronged approach that addresses both immediate concerns and systemic vulnerabilities. Trust can only be restored if the government demonstrates a genuine commitment to strengthening the independence of oversight institutions, fostering inclusivity in decision-making, and ensuring accountability across all levels of governance. 1. Engaging regional and continental bodies. The African Union, AU, and the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, have a critical role to play in mediating and providing guidance on Sierra Leone's governance challenges. Both organizations have frameworks that promote good governance and institutional integrity, including the African Charter on Democracy, Elections, and Governance, ACDEG. By initiating dialogue between Sierra Leone's government, opposition parties, and civil society, the AU and ECOWAS can help to mitigate political tensions and advocate for reforms that bolster institutional independence. Furthermore, peer review mechanisms, such as ECOWAS's Mediation and Security Council, could provide oversight and encourage adherence to regional governance standards. 2. Leveraging citizen-led initiatives. Grassroots movements and citizen-led advocacy remain pivotal in driving long-term governance reforms. Platforms like the National Election Watch, NEW, and the Campaign for Good Governance, CGG, can lead public education campaigns to ensure citizens are aware of their rights and the importance of independent oversight institutions. Mobilizing citizens through town halls, petitions, and peaceful protests can amplify demands for transparency and accountability. Additionally, digital platforms should be leveraged to crowdsource ideas for reform, organize campaigns, and increase civic engagement, particularly among youth who make up the majority of Sierra Leone's population. 3. Establishing a commission of inquiry. To address allegations of political interference and procedural irregularities in the tribunal process, a neutral and independent commission of inquiry could be established. This commission should include representatives from the judiciary, civil society, and international observers to ensure impartiality and transparency. Its findings could provide a basis for institutional reforms and pave the way for rebuilding trust in the public sector. 4. Enhancing judicial oversight. The judiciary plays a central role in upholding the rule of law and ensuring that decisions affecting public officials are based on evidence and legal standards rather than political considerations. Sierra Leone's judiciary must assert its independence and take proactive steps to review and, if necessary, overturn actions that violate constitutional provisions or undermine institutional integrity. Incorporating judicial review mechanisms into the process of appointing or removing oversight officials would create an additional safeguard against political interference. Countries like Ghana, where courts have played a pivotal role in protecting the independence of electoral and auditing bodies, offer valuable lessons in this regard. Comparative lessons, successful reforms across Africa. Kenya, the role of public participation. Kenya's 2010 constitution introduced public participation as a cornerstone of governance, mandating transparency and inclusivity in all major government decisions. This framework has been instrumental in ensuring that public officials are held accountable and that decisions impacting oversight bodies are subject to rigorous scrutiny. Sierra Leone could adopt similar constitutional provisions to institutionalize public participation in governance processes. South Africa, judicial safeguards for oversight bodies. South Africa's Chapter 9. Institutions, including the Office of the Public Protector, enjoy constitutional guarantees of independence. Recent cases, such as the impeachment proceedings against former President Jacob Zuma, demonstrate the judiciary's role in protecting these institutions from political interference. By establishing similar judicial safeguards, Sierra Leone could strengthen the autonomy of its Auditor-General and other oversight bodies. Rwanda, institutionalizing accountability mechanisms. Rwanda's success in reducing corruption is often attributed to its robust accountability mechanisms, including the Rwanda Governance Board, RGB, which monitors government performance and ensures compliance with ethical standards. Sierra Leone could benefit from creating an independent oversight body tasked with evaluating the performance and integrity of its institutions. The way forward, balancing reform and stability. While institutional reform is crucial, it must be balanced with efforts to maintain political and social stability. Sierra Leone's history of civil unrest underscores the importance of fostering dialogue and consensus among political stakeholders. The government must prioritize inclusivity and transparency to prevent further polarization and ensure that reforms are embraced by all segments of society. Economic ramifications of weakened oversight institutions. The removal of Auditor-General Lara Taylor-Pearce not only raises concerns about governance but also carries significant economic implications. The perception of weakened oversight institutions can erode investor confidence, disrupt public resource management, and jeopardize international aid, a crucial component of Sierra Leone's development financing. 1. Impact on investor confidence. Transparent governance is a cornerstone of attracting and retaining foreign direct investment, FDI. Oversight institutions like the Audit Service ensure that public resources are managed efficiently, reducing corruption risks and signaling to investors that the business environment is stable. The controversy surrounding Taylor-Pearce's removal, coupled with allegations of political interference, could deter potential investors who may perceive Sierra Leone as a high-risk destination. Countries with robust accountability frameworks, such as Mauritius and Botswana, consistently rank higher in investor confidence and ease of doing business. Sierra Leone's ability to restore trust in its governance structures will be critical to reversing any damage caused by recent developments. 2. Disruption to public financial management. A compromised Supreme Audit institution undermines Sierra Leone's ability to monitor the use of public funds effectively. The absence of independent oversight increases the risk of mismanagement and embezzlement, which could exacerbate the country's fiscal challenges. With Sierra Leone already grappling with high levels of public debt and inflation, the efficient use of resources is more important than ever. The removal of Taylor-Pearce, who was widely respected for her commitment to exposing financial malfeasance, has created a vacuum in the country's accountability framework. This could embolden corrupt practices, leading to further inefficiencies in public spending and slowing progress on critical development goals. 3. Implications for international aid. Sierra Leone relies heavily on donor funding to finance its development projects, from healthcare to education and infrastructure. International donors, including the World Bank, IMF, and bilateral partners like the UK and EU, often tie financial assistance to governance benchmarks. The controversy surrounding the Auditor General's removal may prompt donors to reassess their engagement with Sierra Leone, potentially leading to reduced aid flows or stricter conditionalities. For instance, governance-related aid suspensions in countries like Malawi and Zambia have highlighted how donor agencies respond to perceived lapses in accountability. To avoid similar repercussions, Sierra Leone must demonstrate a commitment to rebuilding its institutional integrity. 4. Loss of public trust in fiscal policies. Public perception of government accountability is crucial for the successful implementation of fiscal policies, particularly those involving taxation or austerity measures. The removal of Taylor-Pearce has amplified public skepticism about the government's intentions, with many citizens questioning whether their taxes will be used effectively. A failure to address these concerns could lead to resistance against new tax policies or reforms, further constraining Sierra Leone's fiscal space. Rebuilding trust in public institutions will therefore be key to ensuring citizen compliance with revenue-generating measures. Leveraging economic incentives for governance reforms. The economic challenges stemming from weakened oversight institutions also present an opportunity for Sierra Leone to pursue meaningful governance reforms. By linking these reforms to economic incentives, the government can rebuild public trust while attracting renewed international support. 1. Performance-based funding. Donor agencies can adopt performance-based funding models that reward Sierra Leone for achieving specific governance milestones. For example, funding could be tied to the establishment of an independent commission to oversee the appointment and dismissal of public officials or the implementation of judicial review mechanisms for oversight decisions. 2. Private sector partnerships. Collaborations with the private sector can drive transparency initiatives, particularly in resource management. Sierra Leone's burgeoning extractive industries, including mining and oil, offer opportunities to implement joint monitoring systems that involve both government and private stakeholders. These systems can enhance accountability while showcasing the government's commitment to transparency. 3. Citizen-driven economic reforms. Grassroots movements can advocate for participatory budgeting processes that allow citizens to influence how public resources are allocated. This approach has been successfully implemented in countries like Kenya and South Africa, where community involvement has increased transparency and reduced corruption in local governance. Broader lessons for Africa. Sierra Leone's governance challenges echo broader trends across Africa, where oversight institutions often struggle to maintain independence amid political pressures. However, the continent also offers examples of resilience and reform that can inform Sierra Leone's path forward. Ghana. Leveraging public accountability. Ghana's Fiscal Responsibility Act, which sets limits on public debt and deficit levels, is enforced by an independent council that reports directly to Parliament. This model of legislative oversight could inspire Sierra Leone to strengthen the role of its parliament in monitoring public finances. Namibia. Building public-private transparency. Namibia's Public Procurement Act mandates transparency in awarding government contracts, reducing opportunities for corruption. By adopting similar legislation, Sierra Leone could enhance the integrity of its procurement processes and rebuild confidence in its public financial management systems. Building a coalition for reform. The path to restoring Sierra Leone's democratic and institutional integrity lies in the creation of a broad coalition comprising political leaders, civil society, international partners, and everyday citizens. Each stakeholder has a distinct role to play in driving the reforms necessary to address governance deficiencies exposed by the removal of the Auditor General. 1. Political leadership and bipartisan collaboration. Political leaders across party lines must rise above partisan interests to prioritize the long-term stability of Sierra Leone's governance institutions. The ruling Sierra Leone People's Party, SLPP, and the opposition All People's Congress, APC, have an opportunity to demonstrate statesmanship by working collaboratively to enact legal and procedural safeguards for oversight institutions. The establishment of a bipartisan parliamentary committee dedicated to institutional reform could be a first step. Such a committee could review existing laws governing the Auditor General's office and propose amendments to enhance transparency and independence. Bipartisan engagement would not only lend credibility to the reform process, but also foster public trust in Sierra Leone's political system. 2. Empowering civil society organizations, CSOs. Civil society organizations have long been at the forefront of advocating for good governance in Sierra Leone. Groups such as the Campaign for Good Governance, CGG, and the Center for Accountability and Rule of Law, CARL, should be supported in their efforts to monitor government actions, educate the public, and advocate for institutional reform. To amplify their impact, CSOs could form coalitions with regional and international organizations. Platforms like the West Africa Civil Society Institute, WACSI, and the African Governance Platform could provide technical expertise, resources, and networks to strengthen advocacy efforts. 3. Role of international partners. International organizations and donor agencies have a vested interest in ensuring Sierra Leone's governance framework remains robust. Institutions such as the African Development Bank, AFDB, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund, IMF, should continue to provide technical and financial support for governance reforms while maintaining pressure for accountability. Development partners could also consider funding capacity-building programs for public institutions. Training programs for parliamentarians, judicial officers, and civil servants would enhance their ability to uphold democratic principles and institutional independence. 4. Citizen participation and grassroots advocacy. The involvement of citizens is crucial to sustaining momentum for governance reform. Grassroots movements can push for greater accountability through public forums, community outreach programs, and online campaigns. Engaging citizens in discussions about the importance of oversight institutions would build a more informed and active electorate. Participatory platforms, such as citizen panels and open budget hearings, could be institutionalized to ensure that public voices are included in decision-making processes. This would not only strengthen accountability, but also reduce the disconnect between the government and the governed. The role of education and media are indispensable tools in fostering a culture of accountability and transparency. By equipping citizens with the knowledge and tools to demand good governance, these sectors can act as catalysts for change. 1. Civic education programs. Civic education initiatives should be expanded to include modules on governance, the role of oversight institutions, and the importance of transparency. Schools, universities, and community organizations can play a role in delivering these programs, ensuring that future generations understand their rights and responsibilities in a democratic society. 2. Strengthening independent media. Independent journalism is a cornerstone of accountability. Sierra Leone's media landscape must be empowered to investigate and report on governance issues without fear of intimidation or censorship. International press freedom organizations, such as Reporters Without Borders and the Committee to Protect Journalists, could provide training and resources to bolster investigative journalism in the country. Social media also remains a powerful tool for information dissemination and public mobilization. Platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and WhatsApp can be used to share verified information, counter disinformation, and organize campaigns advocating for institutional reform. The broader African context, regional collaboration. Sierra Leone is not alone in grappling with governance challenges. Across Africa, countries are facing similar struggles to uphold the independence of their oversight institutions. Regional collaboration offers an avenue for sharing best practices and learning from successful reform efforts. 1. Leveraging the African Peer Review Mechanism, APRM. The African Peer Review Mechanism, APRM, provides a platform for countries to evaluate each other's governance frameworks and share lessons learned. Sierra Leone could use its APRM membership to engage with countries that have successfully strengthened their oversight institutions, such as Ghana and Botswana. 2. Strengthening ECOWAS. Engagement ECOWAS has a mandate to promote democracy and good governance among its member states. By engaging ECOWAS, Sierra Leone could seek technical assistance and mediation in addressing governance challenges. ECOWAS could also facilitate regional dialogues on best practices for safeguarding the independence of accountability institutions. Policy proposals for institutional reform. To address the governance and accountability concerns exposed by the removal of the Auditor-General, Sierra Leone requires targeted policy reforms that go beyond symbolic gestures. These reforms must address structural weaknesses, safeguard institutional independence, and enhance transparency in public administration. 1. Establishing an independent oversight commission. One of the most critical reforms is the establishment of an independent oversight commission, IOC, tasked with ensuring the autonomy and accountability of key public institutions. This commission would oversee appointments, suspensions, and dismissals of officials in oversight bodies such as the Audit Service, Anti-Corruption Commission, ACC, and the Electoral Commission of Sierra Leone, ECSL. The IOC's structure should include representatives from civil society, academia, the judiciary, and international organizations to ensure impartiality. The Commission must operate with a clear mandate, backed by constitutional amendments that shield it from political interference. This approach mirrors South Africa's Chapter 9 institutions, which have proven effective in maintaining oversight integrity. 2. Reforming the Anti-Corruption Commission. While the Anti-Corruption Commission, ACC, in Sierra Leone has made strides in combating graft, its perceived alignment with political interests undermines its credibility. Reforms to the ACC should focus on decentralizing its operations to improve accessibility for citizens in rural areas, strengthening whistleblower protections to encourage reporting of corruption without fear of retaliation, introducing term limits for leadership positions to reduce the likelihood of political capture. A comparative analysis of Rwanda's Office of the Ombudsman, known for its independence and efficiency, could provide insights into best practices for ACC reform. 3. Enhancing the role of Parliament. Parliament must take a more active role in protecting the independence of oversight institutions. Specific reforms include creating a Parliamentary Accountability Committee to scrutinize the actions of oversight bodies and ensure adherence to legal standards, mandating public hearings for significant decisions, such as the removal of high-ranking officials, to promote transparency and citizen involvement, implementing legislative safeguards that require supermajority approval for actions affecting oversight institutions, reducing the potential for partisan decisions. 4. Adopting regional governance charters. Sierra Leone should reaffirm its commitment to regional governance frameworks, such as the African Charter on Democracy, Elections, and Governance, ACDEG. Aligning domestic policies with the principles outlined in these charters would provide a benchmark for accountability and demonstrate Sierra Leone's commitment to good governance. 5. Institutionalizing citizen oversight mechanisms. To rebuild trust, Sierra Leone must create avenues for direct citizen participation in governance. Institutionalizing citizen oversight mechanisms, such as public audits, participatory budgeting, and citizen advisory panels, would enhance transparency and foster a sense of ownership among the populace. Developing a reform roadmap. Implementing these reforms requires a well-defined roadmap that balances urgency with feasibility. The roadmap should include short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals, supported by measurable milestones and adequate funding. Short-term goals, 0-12 months. 1. Establish a task force for institutional reform, comprising government officials, civil society leaders, and international advisors. This task force would spearhead reform efforts and ensure coordination among stakeholders. 2. Launch a national dialogue. Convene forums to gather input from citizens, experts, and political leaders on the proposed reforms. 3. Secure international support. Engage development partners to provide technical and financial assistance for the reform process. Medium-term goals, 1-3 years. 1. Enact legislative amendments. Introduce and pass laws to establish the Independent Oversight Commission and strengthen the Anti-Corruption Commission. 2. Develop civic education programs. Implement nationwide initiatives to educate citizens about governance, accountability, and their role in monitoring public institutions. 3. Expand media freedom protections. Strengthen legal protections for journalists to ensure the free flow of information. Long-term goals, 3-5 years. 1. Institutionalize citizen participation mechanisms. Embed participatory governance practices, such as citizen audits and budget hearings, into Sierra Leone's governance framework. 2. Evaluate and strengthen regional collaboration. Periodically assess Sierra Leone's compliance with regional governance charters and leverage peer review mechanisms for continuous improvement. 3. Foster a culture of accountability. Promote ethical leadership and accountability through public recognition of exemplary governance practices. Lessons for sustaining reforms. Ensuring the sustainability of these reforms requires a multi-stakeholder approach that prioritizes collaboration, transparency, and adaptability. Lessons from other African nations reveal that leadership is key. Strong political leadership, as demonstrated in countries like Ghana, can drive the reform agenda forward. Citizen engagement ensures longevity. Involving citizens in the reform process creates a sense of ownership and helps sustain momentum. International partnerships provide leverage. Development partners and regional bodies can offer financial resources and technical expertise to complement domestic efforts. Challenges to reform implementation. While the proposed reforms present a roadmap for strengthening Sierra Leone's governance, their implementation will face significant obstacles. These challenges include political resistance, resource limitations, and public skepticism. Addressing these issues proactively will be essential to ensuring the success and sustainability of the reform agenda. 1. Political resistance. The reforms aimed at curbing executive influence are likely to face pushback from political elites who benefit from the status quo. Resistance may manifest as delays in parliamentary approval, attempts to dilute legislation, or public campaigns to discredit reform advocates. Strategy. Building coalitions across political divides and engaging influential leaders can mitigate resistance. Public pressure, amplified through civil society and media, will also be critical in holding political actors accountable. 2. Resource constraints. Implementing systemic reforms requires significant financial and technical resources. Sierra Leone's fiscal challenges, compounded by declining international aid due to governance concerns, could hamper reform efforts. Strategy. Leveraging partnerships with international donors and regional organizations will be crucial. Transparent utilization of funds and clear progress milestones can encourage continued support from these partners. 3. Public skepticism. Years of perceived governance failures have eroded public trust in the government's ability to drive meaningful change. Citizens may view reform initiatives with skepticism, particularly if early efforts lack visible impact. Strategy. Effective communication strategies, including regular updates on reform progress and tangible short-term wins, can rebuild public confidence. Civic education programs should emphasize the long-term benefits of these reforms to counteract disillusionment. Advice to African leaders. The situation in Sierra Leone offers lessons for leaders across Africa on the importance of institutional integrity and the perils of political interference in oversight bodies. To avoid similar crises and strengthen governance, African leaders should prioritize the following. 1. Preserve institutional independence. Safeguarding the autonomy of institutions like audit offices, anti-corruption commissions, and electoral bodies is crucial for public trust and sustainable development. 2. Foster inclusive governance. Engage citizens, civil society, and opposition parties in decision-making processes to ensure policies reflect diverse perspectives and are widely supported. 3. Promote transparency and accountability. Regular public audits, open parliamentary sessions, and access to information are essential for building confidence in government actions. 4. Commit to regional standards. Adhering to regional and international governance frameworks, such as the African Charter on Democracy, can provide benchmarks for accountability and deter political interference. 5. Invest in civic education and media freedom. Empower citizens to hold leaders accountable through robust civic education initiatives and protections for independent journalism. Summary of key messages. The removal of Sierra Leone's Auditor-General Lara Taylor-Pearce has highlighted critical governance challenges that resonate across the African continent. While this decision underscores the vulnerabilities of oversight institutions, it also presents an opportunity for Sierra Leone to lead by example in pursuing comprehensive reforms. Key takeaways from this analysis include: the independence of oversight institutions is non-negotiable for fostering accountability and transparency. Public trust can only be rebuilt through inclusive, transparent, and participatory governance processes. Regional collaboration and international partnerships are essential for driving reforms and ensuring compliance with governance standards. Political will, civic engagement, and sustained public pressure are crucial to overcoming resistance and ensuring reform sustainability. As Sierra Leone embarks on this journey of introspection and reform, its leaders and citizens must remember that a robust democracy is built on the foundation of strong institutions, not the whims of individuals. African leaders across the continent would do well to heed these lessons, prioritizing the long-term stability and prosperity of their nations over short-term political gains. The future of governance in Sierra Leone and Africa at large depends on the choices made today. By committing to accountability, transparency, and institutional integrity, leaders can lay the groundwork for a brighter, more inclusive future for all. Thank you for joining us on the Bold African Voice, BAV. The story of Sierra Leone's Auditor General is more than just a national issue. It's a reflection of the governance challenges facing our continent. Let's continue the conversation in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay informed about the stories that shape Africa's future. Together we make the difference.